Have you ever wondered why the US dollar is so important, even outside America? It's a question that goes far beyond simple economics. The dollar is everywhere, in your wallet, in the headlines, and in the hands of people thousands of miles away. But what makes this single currency so influential, and why does it matter to people who have never even set foot in the United States? It's not just American money, it's the world's financial backbone, from bustling markets in Asia to high-stakes deals in Europe. The dollar is the common language of global trade and investment. The dollar's dominance shapes everything from your morning coffee to global oil prices. Whether you're buying groceries or a country is importing fuel, the dollar's value ripples through every transaction, big or small. But this supremacy is now being quietly challenged. Behind the scenes, world leaders and financial experts are debating the future of the dollar's reign. As the world changes, countries are exploring alternatives, and the process of de-dollarization is underway. This shift could reshape the way nations do business and interact on the world stage. Nations are buying more gold and trading in their own currencies. They're seeking new ways to protect themselves from economic shocks and to assert more control over their financial futures. This story isn't just about finance, it's about power, history, and the architecture of our interconnected world. The dollar's journey is woven into the fabric of international relations and everyday life. Understanding the dollar's role is essential for grasping the global economy and the forces that shape our lives. It helps explain why economic news from faraway places can impact your daily routine. The fate of the dollar affects your pension, gas prices, and your country's ability to trade. Its strength or weakness can mean the difference between economic stability and uncertainty for millions. This isn't just for experts, it's about the foundation of our world. The dollar's story is everyone's story, touching lives in ways both visible and hidden. So, how did the dollar become so powerful? What events and decisions led to its rise as the world's reserve currency? What keeps it on top? And what are the risks and opportunities as the world begins to question its dominance? And what might a world with a weaker dollar look like? How would it change the way we live, work, and connect across borders? Let's start by looking back at the moment that set the stage for the dollar's rise, a turning point in history that still shapes our world today. Before the dollar, the British pound ruled global trade. For centuries, the pound sterling was the backbone of international finance, trusted by merchants and governments alike. London was the world's financial capital, and British currency flowed through every major port and trading house. But, after two devastating world wars, Britain was left in ruins and deep debt, much of it owed to the US. The cost of war had drained its resources, and the empire's global influence was fading fast. The old order was crumbling and a new power was rising. The US emerged from World War II as an economic powerhouse, holding 2/3 of the world's gold reserves. American factories had powered the Allied victory and the nation's wealth was unmatched. America became the world's creditor, factory, and bank. Its industries were booming, its banks flush with capital, and its influence growing by the day. The old gold standard had failed, and the world needed a new anchor. Currencies were unstable, and nations searched for something solid to rebuild trust in global trade. The US dollar, backed by unmatched economic strength and vast gold reserves, was the obvious choice. It offered stability in a world desperate for certainty. Europe and Asia needed capital to rebuild. The US had the resources and the will to lead. American aid and investment flowed overseas, fueling recovery and forging new alliances. The stage was set for a new global system, with the dollar at its center. Trade routes shifted, and international finance began to revolve around the American currency. This shift wasn't accidental. It was a strategic vision for global stability. American policymakers saw an opportunity to shape the future and prevent the chaos of the past. American leaders believed a stable, dollar-based system would prevent future wars and depressions. They wanted to create a world where prosperity and peace could flourish. The world needed a new leader, a new system, and a new currency. The moment had come for bold decisions and international cooperation. The answer would come from a historic gathering in a small New Hampshire town. There, delegates from around the world would chart a new course for the global economy. Its decisions would echo for generations, shaping the world we live in today. In July 1944, as World War II raged on, delegates from 44 nations gathered in the quiet town of Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Their mission was nothing short of monumental: to reshape the global economic landscape and prevent the chaos that had followed the previous World War. Over several intense weeks, these representatives debated, negotiated, and ultimately collaborated to design a new economic order that would foster stability and growth for decades to come. The solution they crafted became known as the Bretton Woods system, a framework that would transform international finance. At its core, the US dollar was crowned the world's primary reserve currency, pegged to gold at $35 an ounce. This gave the dollar unprecedented credibility and made it the anchor of the new system. Other countries, seeking stability, pegged their own currencies to the dollar, creating a web of global demand and trust in the American currency. To oversee this new order, two powerful institutions were established: the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, both headquartered in Washington, D.C. Their roles would be to promote economic cooperation and provide financial support to nations in need. For nearly 30 years, the Bretton Woods system fueled an era of remarkable global growth and post-war recovery, helping nations rebuild and prosper. But as the US government printed more dollars to finance wars and ambitious social programs, cracks began to appear. Confidence in the dollar's gold backing started to waver, and questions about the system's sustainability grew louder. Countries like France, wary of the dollar's stability, demanded gold in exchange for their dollars, putting immense pressure on US gold reserves. In 1971, facing a run on gold and mounting economic challenges, President Nixon made a historic announcement: the dollar would no longer be convertible to gold, effectively ending the Bretton Woods era. Yet by then, the dollar's dominance in global trade and finance was too deeply rooted to be undone overnight. The world's financial system had been rebuilt around the greenback, and international markets continued to rely on it as the backbone of commerce and investment. The dollar was now king, not just by design, but by necessity, shaping the modern era of global finance. But the story didn't end there. A new pillar would soon emerge to support the dollar's reign, ushering in the next chapter of financial history. The end of Bretton Woods could have toppled the dollar, but oil gave it new life. In the 1970s, the US struck a deal with Saudi Arabia price oil in dollars, and America would provide protection. This petrodollar system forced every nation to buy dollars to buy oil, creating constant demand. Oil exporters recycled their profits by investing in US assets, financing American deficits, and keeping interest rates low. The petrodollar system locked in the dollar's central role in global trade. For 50 years, oil and the dollar have been inseparable. Even as America's share of global GDP shrank, the dollar's grip held firm. That's why oil is still priced in dollars today. This oil connection became the second great pillar of the dollar's empire. But now, even this foundation is starting to show cracks. The world is beginning to change. Today, the dollar's dominance is staggering. It's involved in nearly 9 out of 10 global currency trades. The euro is a distant second. About 70% of all international debt is issued in dollars, making countries worldwide sensitive to US interest rates. The dollar remains the world's largest reserve currency, held by central banks everywhere. As of 2025, it accounts for just under 60% of global reserves, down from 70% 2 decades ago, but still far ahead of any rival. The Chinese yuan, despite China's size, makes up less than 3%. Central banks hold dollars because they're liquid, stable, and essential for global trade. But dominance doesn't mean the dollar is the strongest by value. Its power lies in its ubiquity, the indispensable plumbing of the world's financial system. The dollar is everywhere, shaping economies and policies far beyond America's borders. But cracks are starting to appear in this green foundation. The dollar's empire faces a slow but steady challenge: de-dollarization. Countries are diversifying reserves, buying more gold, and trading in other currencies. Russia now sells oil in local currencies. India and Bangladesh use yuan for major deals. Even Saudi Arabia is considering accepting yuan for oil. These are small steps, but they signal a psychological break from the past. US sanctions have pushed nations to seek alternatives, wary of being cut off from the dollar system. Even allies are quietly building financial systems less vulnerable to American influence. The world is experimenting with life beyond the greenback. Despite these shifts, the dollar's dominance is hard to dislodge. The US economy is still the world's largest, a magnet for global commerce. US financial markets are deep, liquid, and trusted. No other country comes close. Central banks and investors need a safe, reliable place for their money, and US treasuries deliver. The world's financial plumbing is built around the dollar. Changing it would be costly and risky. In times of crisis, investors flock to the dollar as a safe haven. Alternatives, like the euro and yuan, face their own hurdles: political divisions, lack of convertibility, and government control. A true global reserve currency needs an open economy, transparent institutions, and the rule of law. For now, only the dollar checks all the boxes. Its incumbency advantage is enormous. The world trusts the dollar, and trust is hard to replace. The greenback's flaws are real, but its strengths are unmatched. The dollar remains king, at least for now. What if the dollar lost its crown? For the US, borrowing would get more expensive and the era of easy deficits would end. Americans would face higher prices for imports, but exports could become more competitive. US geopolitical influence would shrink, and sanctions would lose their bite. Other countries would gain more economic freedom, buying commodities in their own currencies. The world could become more balanced, but also more volatile. The biggest risk is a chaotic transition. A sudden loss of confidence in the dollar could trigger a global financial crisis. More likely, we'll see a slow shift to a multipolar world, with the dollar, euro, and yuan sharing the stage. This would mean new rules, new risks, and new opportunities. The world's financial system would be fundamentally different. The transition could be bumpy, but it's already underway. The future is uncertain, but change is coming. The story of the dollar is the story of the modern world. Its dominance has fueled decades of growth and given the US immense power. But the ground is shifting. De-dollarization is real, and a multipolar currency world is emerging. This isn't just a financial story. It's about global power, and the future we'll all share. The transition brings risks and opportunities for every nation. For the US, it means rethinking its role. For others, it means new responsibilities. Managing the shift wisely is crucial to avoid chaos. Stay informed. These changes will shape the world your children inherit. The dollar's reign defined our past and present. The next chapter is being written now, and we all have a stake in its outcome.